The hardest part wasn't hiding who I was. It was never knowing whether I was actually safe enough to stop hiding. Nobody taught me to test people. Life did. Not in one dramatic moment. In hundreds of tiny ones. A joke that made everyone laugh except me. A family conversation that suddenly turned into a debate about people who sounded suspiciously like me. A friend saying, "I don't have a problem with them," but that word always stayed with me. But it never sounded loud. It sounded dangerous. Because every "but" felt like another reminder that acceptance could disappear the moment it became personal. So I stopped asking people if they would accept me. Instead, I started watching them closely. I noticed who laughed at certain jokes, who stayed silent, who changed the subject, who became uncomfortable when two men held hands in a movie, who rolled their eyes when someone mentioned pride. Nobody realized I was studying them. They thought we were just having conversations. I thought I was gathering evidence. Evidence that might determine whether I would lose another relationship before it had the chance to become real. That's the strange thing about living in the closet. It doesn't just teach you how to hide. It teaches you how to investigate. Every room becomes an emotional crime scene. Every conversation feels like another clue. You stop hearing words. You start measuring reactions. You become obsessed with the space between what people say and what they actually reveal. It becomes exhausting, not physically, mentally, emotionally, because the investigation never ends. Even around people you love, especially around people you love. Losing strangers hurts. Losing family rewrites your entire nervous system. After enough close calls, your brain stops believing safety is something you're given. It becomes something you have to prove. Again and again. Quietly. Without letting anyone know you're doing it. That's why I would bring up random stories that didn't seem random at all. I'd mention a celebrity coming out. I'd ask what someone thought about a same-sex couple they saw online. I'd pretend I was asking out of curiosity. I wasn't. I was asking about me, without admitting it, because direct honesty felt like stepping into traffic with my eyes closed. Indirect honesty felt survivable. That's how fear evolves. It becomes intelligent. It stops screaming. It starts calculating. Most people think hiding is simply not telling the truth. They don't realize hiding eventually changes the way your brain works. You begin editing yourself before anyone else has the chance to. You delete stories. You replace names with pronouns. You rehearse ordinary conversations like they're courtroom testimony. Nothing can sound suspicious. Nothing can sound too revealing. Eventually you become so good at self-editing. You forget where the editing ends and your real personality begins. That realization terrified me more than rejection ever did. Because rejection hurts. But disappearing inside your own performance? That changes who you become. Quietly. Modern life makes it worse. We're told to be authentic. To be ourselves. To live openly. Yet every app quietly teaches the opposite lesson. Profiles become products. People become categories. Algorithms reward certainty. Nuance gets ignored. Identity becomes something strangers think they understand after reading 3 sentences. Visibility has never been easier. Feeling understood has never been harder. That's why I found myself wanting something that sounded impossible. I wanted to be completely known, without risking being completely abandoned. Those two desires kept fighting each other every single day. One part of me wanted freedom. The other part remembered every reason freedom once felt dangerous. People often confuse this with trust issues. It isn't always about trust. Sometimes it's about memory. Your body remembers conversations your mind wishes it could forget. It remembers the silence after certain words, the uncomfortable expressions, the disappointment, the questions you never wanted to answer. Trauma doesn't always replay as flashbacks. Sometimes it replays as hesitation, as overthinking, as checking someone's face before finishing a sentence, as laughing before they do, just in case. Because if they laugh with you, maybe you're safe. If they laugh at you, you've already prepared yourself. That's survival, not manipulation. There's another contradiction nobody talks about. The longer I hid, the more desperately I wanted someone to notice. Not everything, just enough. Enough to ask the right question. Enough to tell me I didn't have to keep performing. Enough to make the investigation stop. But nobody asked, because I had become too convincing. That's the tragedy of emotional masking. The better you become at looking okay, the less likely anyone is to realize you're carrying something heavy. People praised how calm I was. They admired how private I seemed. They called me independent. They never saw the exhaustion behind it. Privacy wasn't peace. It was protection. Independence wasn't confidence. It was preparation. Preparation for the possibility that honesty might cost me everything. Again. Over time, something even stranger happened. I stopped testing whether people would accept me. I started testing whether I could survive if they didn't. That question changes the entire way you experience relationships. You don't fall into connection. You negotiate it. Carefully. Slowly. Always keeping one emotional exit unlocked. Just in case. And that's the hidden cost no one sees. The closet doesn't only hide your identity. It teaches your nervous system that love is unpredictable. That belonging is temporary. That acceptance expires the moment the wrong person learns the right truth. So you become hyper-aware, hyper-prepared, hyper-vigilant, until one day you realize you're no longer protecting yourself from rejection. You're protecting yourself from hope. Because hope is dangerous when you've learned that feeling safe and actually being safe are not always the same thing. The cruelest part is that, eventually, someone may genuinely accept you. Completely. Without conditions. Without hesitation. And your first instinct won't be relief. It will be suspicion. Because fear doesn't disappear the moment safety arrives. It waits. Watching. Expecting the kindness to end. Expecting the mask to become necessary again. That's when you realize the deepest wound was never simply hiding who you were. It was spending so many years believing that being fully known was the fastest way to lose the people you couldn't bear to lose.